You won't believe what just happened. Tony Khan has done the unthinkable. The man who built AEW alongside the Elite, the wrestler who carried the company through its darkest days during the pandemic, the fighter who defended that world championship with blood, sweat, and broken bones is gone. Jon Moxley has been fired from All Elite Wrestling, and the backstage incident that led to this nuclear decision is absolutely insane. This isn't a work, this isn't a storyline, this is real life, and the fallout is going to change professional wrestling forever. Stay with me because the details of what actually happened backstage will make your blood boil, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this might be the biggest mistake Tony Khan has ever made, or possibly the only choice he had left. Before we dive into the chaos, let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw a wrestling company fire their top star, their most reliable performer, the guy who showed up every single week and put his body on the line? You can't think of one, can you? Because it doesn't happen. Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't get fired during his prime. John Cena didn't get released when he was on top. Roman Reigns is still the face of WWE. So what on earth could Jon Moxley have possibly done to warrant this kind of treatment from Tony Khan? The answer is going to shock you, and honestly, it's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about what's really happening behind the curtain in AEW. Here's where things get intense. According to multiple sources close to the situation, there was an explosive confrontation backstage at a recent AEW event that escalated far beyond anything anyone could have anticipated. We're talking about a full-blown verbal altercation that reportedly turned physical, with Moxley at the center of it all. Now, before you jump into the comments defending Moxley or attacking him, hear me out because the context here is absolutely critical, and the wrestling media has been getting parts of this story completely wrong. The incident allegedly occurred in the gorilla position right before Dynamite went live. Tensions had been building for weeks between Moxley and certain members of AEW management regarding creative direction, booking decisions, and the overall trajectory of the company. Moxley, known for being outspoken and passionate about the wrestling business, had apparently reached his breaking point. Multiple wrestlers who were present have described the scene as one of the most uncomfortable and intense moments they've ever witnessed in a locker room. The shouting could be heard throughout the backstage area, and at one point, furniture was reportedly thrown. Security had to intervene, and the entire atmosphere backstage went from professional to chaotic in a matter of minutes. But here's what nobody is talking about, and this is where it gets really interesting. Jon Moxley wasn't just angry about his own booking. According to insiders, he was standing up for younger talent who felt they weren't being given proper opportunities, and he was vocal about his frustrations with how certain storylines were being abandoned or changed last minute without any logical explanation. Moxley has always been a locker room leader, someone who mentors the younger guys and genuinely cares about the product. So the idea that he would snap over something petty just doesn't add up. There had to be something deeper, something that was the final straw after months or even years of mounting frustration. Now here's the part that should make every AEW fan furious. Tony Khan, instead of trying to mediate the situation, instead of sitting down with one of his top stars and having an actual conversation about the issues being raised, made the decision to terminate Moxley's contract effective immediately. No cooling off period, no suspension, no attempt at conflict resolution. Just done. Finished. One of the founding pillars of AEW shown the door like he was some rookie who didn't matter. The lack of respect in that decision is staggering, and it raises serious questions about Tony Khan's leadership and his ability to handle conflict within his own company. Think about this for a second. Jon Moxley left WWE in 2019 because he was creatively frustrated, because he wanted to work for a company that valued its wrestlers and listened to their ideas. He took a massive risk betting on AEW when it was just starting out, and he became the face of the company during some of its most challenging moments. When the pandemic hit and AEW couldn't run shows with full crowds, Moxley was there, working with limited resources, making the best of a terrible situation. When other stars were injured or unavailable, Moxley stepped up. He defended that AEW World Championship with pride, and he put over younger talent whenever it made sense for the story. This man bled for AEW, literally. His matches with Kenny Omega, his feuds with MJF, his work in the Blackpool Combat Club, all of it contributed to making AEW a legitimate alternative to WWE. And this is how he gets repaid? The wrestling community is already divided on this situation, and I can see why. Some people are saying that no matter who you are, if you cross certain lines backstage, there have to be consequences. They argue that Tony Khan had no choice but to make an example out of Moxley to maintain order and show that nobody is above the rules. On the surface, that sounds reasonable, but when you dig deeper into what actually happened, it becomes clear that this wasn't about maintaining order. This was about ego, about power, and about a promoter who couldn't handle being challenged by someone who actually understands the wrestling business better than he does. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this before you answer in the comments. If you were running a wrestling company and one of your most valuable performers came to you with legitimate concerns about the direction of the product, would you listen or would you push them out? Wrestling Zone Insider wants to know what you think because this situation is bigger than just Moxley and Khan. This is about the future of AEW and whether it can survive the kind of backstage drama that has destroyed other promotions in the past. We have a quick request for you. We are constantly working to improve our content to earn your love and support. That's why we would truly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update here on Wrestling Zone Insider. Now, let's talk about the immediate aftermath of this decision, because the fallout has been swift and it has been brutal. Within hours of the news breaking, social media absolutely exploded with reactions from fans, wrestlers, and industry insiders. The hashtag #FreeMoxley started trending worldwide, with thousands of fans expressing their disbelief and anger at Tony Khan's decision. Several current AEW wrestlers posted cryptic messages on their social media accounts that seemed to hint at their own frustrations with management, and there are now rumors circulating that multiple top stars are considering their options when their contracts come up for renewal. Here's another question for you, and this one is crucial. Do you think other AEW wrestlers are watching what happened to Moxley and feeling secure in their positions, or do you think they are starting to realize that loyalty doesn't mean anything in Tony Khan's AEW? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I have a feeling a lot of you have strong opinions about where this company is heading. The business implications of this move are absolutely massive. Jon Moxley is one of the biggest draws in all of professional wrestling. His matches consistently deliver the highest ratings, his merchandise sells incredibly well, and he has a dedicated fan base that follows him wherever he goes. By firing Moxley, Tony Khan isn't just losing a talented performer, he's potentially losing a significant portion of his audience, especially the hardcore fans who have been with AEW since day one. And let's not forget that WWE is always looking for top talent, especially someone with Moxley's name value and proven track record. The idea of Jon Moxley returning to WWE, maybe showing up at the Royal Rumble or confronting Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns, that's not just fantasy booking anymore. That's a legitimate possibility that could happen in the very near future. But it gets even more complicated than that. There are contractual issues that need to be sorted out, potential legal battles on the horizon, and the question of whether Moxley can even work for another promotion immediately or if there's some kind of non-compete clause in his contract. All of this uncertainty is terrible for AEW's business, and it's creating an environment of instability that could scare off sponsors, television partners, and even other wrestlers who might have been considering signing with the company. Let me give you some perspective on how rare and significant this kind of firing actually is. In the history of professional wrestling, you can count on one hand the number of times a top star has been fired during their prime for non-disciplinary reasons related to substance issues or serious legal problems. Hulk Hogan was released from WWE, but that was because of a racism scandal. Jeff Hardy had issues with substance problems, but a situation where a clean, reliable, main event level performer gets fired because of a backstage disagreement? It almost never happens because smart promoters understand that wrestling is a business where egos clash, tempers flare, and conflicts arise, but you work through those conflicts because the show must go on. Tony Khan is a billionaire's son who has never had to work a real job in his life, never had to struggle, never had to earn anything through blood, sweat, and tears the way wrestlers do. He inherited his wealth, he inherited his position, and now he's playing fantasy booker with real people's careers and livelihoods. Jon Moxley earned everything he has in this business. He paid his dues in bingo halls and high school gyms, he suffered through terrible creative in WWE, and he took a massive risk betting on himself and on AEW. For Tony Khan to disrespect that journey, to throw away years of loyalty and hard work over what amounts to a disagreement about creative direction, it's not just wrong, it's insulting to everyone who has ever laced up a pair of boots and stepped into a wrestling ring. Here's a trivia question for the real wrestling fans out there, and this will separate the casuals from the hardcore. What year did Jon Moxley debut in WWE Developmental, and what was his ring name before he became Dean Ambrose? Drop your answer in the comments and let's see who really knows their wrestling history. Now, I want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. Some people are going to say that this whole situation is a work, that it's just an elaborate storyline to generate buzz and get people talking about AEW. And I get why you might think that, because wrestling has conditioned us to question everything we see and hear. But here's the thing, multiple credible sources within AEW have confirmed that this is legitimate, that contracts have been terminated, and that the legal paperwork is already being processed. This isn't a storyline. This is real life, and the consequences are going to be very real for everyone involved. The locker room morale in AEW right now has to be at an all-time low. Imagine being one of the younger wrestlers who looked up to Moxley as a mentor, who learned from him, who benefited from his willingness to help others. Now you're watching as he gets fired for essentially standing up for you and for the integrity of the product. How does that make you feel? Do you feel valued? Do you feel like your voice matters? Or do you feel like you're just a replaceable cog in a machine run by someone who doesn't actually understand or respect the wrestling business? And let's talk about the fans for a minute, because ultimately, the fans are the ones who are going to determine whether AEW survives this crisis. The hardcore AEW fans have been incredibly loyal through thick and thin. They've defended the company against critics, they've bought the merchandise, they've attended the shows, and they've created an amazing atmosphere that makes AEW events special. But even the most loyal fans have their breaking point, and firing Jon Moxley might be that breaking point for a lot of people. If ticket sales drop, if ratings decline, if merchandise revenue falls, Tony Khan is going to have nobody to blame but himself. Here's another question that I want you to think about and answer honestly in the comments. If you had tickets to an upcoming AEW show and you found out that Jon Moxley was no longer going to be there because he was fired, would you still go to the show or would you ask for a refund? Wrestling Zone Insider really wants to hear from you on this because your answer might reveal a lot about where AEW stands with its fanbase right now. Let me paint you a picture of what the next few months could look like for AEW if this situation isn't handled properly. First, you're going to see a significant drop in ratings because a portion of the audience that tunes in specifically to see Moxley is going to stop watching. Second, you're going to see increased scrutiny from the wrestling media and from fans on social media, with every decision Tony Khan makes being questioned and criticized. Third, you're going to see other wrestlers testing the waters, seeing what kind of opportunities might be available elsewhere, which could lead to more departures. And fourth, you're going to see WWE capitalize on this situation by potentially signing Moxley and featuring him prominently to show that they value top talent in a way that AEW apparently doesn't. The ripple effects of this decision are going to be felt throughout the entire wrestling industry. Independent promoters are probably already reaching out to Moxley's representatives. New Japan Pro Wrestling might be interested in bringing him back for some big shows. Ring of Honor could be an option. The point is, Jon Moxley is going to be just fine. He's talented enough, respected enough, and over enough with fans that he'll land on his feet no matter what happens. The question is whether AEW can survive without him, and right now, that's looking like a very big question mark. I want to share something that one of my sources told me, and this really stuck with me. They said that in the hours after the incident, several veteran wrestlers in the AEW locker room tried to convince Tony Khan to reconsider, to take some time to cool off and think about the long-term implications of firing Moxley. They explained that losing him would be catastrophic for the company, that it would send the wrong message to the roster, and that it would give ammunition to every critic who has ever said that Tony Khan is in over his head as a promoter. But Tony Khan refused to listen. He had made up his mind, and nothing was going to change it. That kind of stubbornness, that refusal to accept input from people who actually understand the wrestling business, that's a huge red flag. Professional wrestling is built on relationships, on trust, on the understanding that while conflicts will arise, cooler heads will eventually prevail because everyone is working toward the same goal of putting on the best show possible. What happened between Tony Khan and Jon Moxley represents a complete breakdown of that fundamental principle. And once that trust is broken, once that relationship is destroyed, it's incredibly difficult to repair. Here's a trivia question that will test your knowledge of Jon Moxley's career outside of WWE and AEW. What was the name of the independent promotion where Moxley had some of his most brutal death matches before signing with WWE? Bonus points if you can name one of his most famous opponents from that era. Leave your answers in the comments section below. Now let's consider what Jon Moxley himself must be feeling right now. This is a man who gave everything to AEW, who believed in the vision of creating an alternative to WWE where wrestlers would have more creative freedom and be treated with more respect. He invested not just his time and his body, but his reputation and his credibility. And now he's been kicked to the curb like he never mattered, like all of those sacrifices were meaningless. The sense of betrayal must be overwhelming, and I wouldn't blame him one bit if he's feeling angry, hurt, and disillusioned with the entire wrestling business right now. But here's what I think is going to happen, and this is just my opinion based on years of watching this industry. Jon Moxley is not the type of person to go quietly into the night. He's not going to just disappear and be forgotten. He's going to come back stronger, more motivated, and more determined than ever to prove that firing him was the biggest mistake Tony Khan could have made. Whether that's in WWE, whether that's in New Japan, whether that's on the independent scene, Moxley is going to remind everyone why he's one of the best professional wrestlers in the world. And when that happens, when he's tearing the house down in front of sold-out crowds and getting the kind of reactions that prove his value, Tony Khan is going to be sitting in his office wondering how he let it get to this point. The wrestling business has a long memory. Fans remember who was loyal and who wasn't. They remember who stood up for what was right and who took the easy way out. They remember who created magic in the ring and who failed to appreciate that magic when they had it. Tony Khan is going to learn these lessons the hard way, and the cost might be his entire company. I need to address something else that's been bothering me about this whole situation, and that's the hypocrisy of it all. Tony Khan has spent years positioning AEW as the wrestler-friendly alternative to WWE, as the place where performers are valued and respected, where their voices matter, and where creative fulfillment is prioritized. But the moment one of his top stars actually exercises that voice, the moment someone actually stands up and says, "Hey, we need to do better," he gets fired. That completely undermines everything AEW claimed to stand for, and it exposes the company as being just as corporate, just as willing to punish dissent, as any other wrestling promotion. We have a quick request for you. We are constantly working to improve our content to earn your love and support. That's why we would truly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update here on Wrestling Zone Insider. Let's talk about the specific issues that allegedly led to the confrontation, because understanding the root causes is important. From what I've been told, Moxley had become increasingly frustrated with storylines being changed at the last minute, with matches being cut for time without explanation, and with talented wrestlers being kept off television while less experienced performers were being pushed heavily. He felt that AEW was losing its identity, that it was trying too hard to compete with WWE on WWE's terms instead of doing what made AEW special in the first place. These are legitimate concerns that any thoughtful observer of AEW over the past year could probably relate to. The Blackpool Combat Club, the faction that Moxley had been leading, was reportedly supposed to have a much bigger role in AEW's programming, but those plans kept getting scaled back or changed entirely. Wrestlers that Moxley had personally vouched for and helped train were being underutilized or not used at all. And when Moxley tried to address these issues through proper channels, he was essentially ignored or told to just trust the process. After months of this treatment, is it really surprising that he finally snapped? Most people would have lost their temper much sooner under those circumstances. Here's what makes this situation even more infuriating. AEW is not struggling financially. They have a lucrative television deal, they have rich ownership, they have the resources to build something truly special. The problems facing AEW are not about money or resources, they are about leadership, about decision-making, about having a clear vision and sticking to it. And when your top star is trying to help you achieve that vision, trying to make the product better, and you respond by firing him, you're not solving the problem. You're making it exponentially worse. The comparison to what's happening in WWE right now is striking. Under Triple H's leadership, WWE has become more receptive to input from wrestlers, more willing to adjust plans when something isn't working, and more focused on long-term storytelling. Wrestlers in WWE seem happier, more creatively fulfilled, and more invested in the product than they have been in years. Meanwhile, AEW, which was supposed to be the company that did all of those things better than WWE, is now firing people for having opinions and trying to improve the show. The irony is almost too much to handle. Let me ask you another question, and this one might be controversial. Do you think Tony Khan is actually qualified to run a professional wrestling company, or is he just a rich fan who is living out his fantasy at the expense of real wrestlers and real employees? I know that's harsh, but it's a question that needs to be asked given what's happened. Leave your honest thoughts in the comments below. The legal ramifications of this situation could be significant as well. If Moxley's contract was terminated without proper cause or in violation of specific contract terms, he could have grounds for a lawsuit. And even if the termination was technically legal, there could be disputes over things like merchandise revenue, residual payments, health insurance continuation, and numerous other contractual matters. Wrestling contracts are notoriously complex, and when a separation happens under hostile circumstances, things can get very messy very quickly. There's also the question of what other promotions can and cannot do while any potential legal issues are being sorted out. If there's a non-compete clause in Moxley's contract, and if AEW is claiming that they terminated with cause, there could be arguments about whether that non-compete is enforceable. These kinds of legal battles can drag on for months or even years, and they benefit nobody except the lawyers. Here's a trivia question for you. Jon Moxley has held world championships in multiple major promotions throughout his career. Can you name at least 3 different world championship titles he's held across different companies? Comment your answers below and show off your wrestling knowledge. I want to talk about the bigger picture for a moment, because this situation is symptomatic of larger issues within AEW. There have been multiple backstage incidents over the past couple of years involving various wrestlers and personnel. There was the famous brawl involving Centimeter Punk and the Elite. There have been reports of other altercations and conflicts that didn't make it into the public eye. There have been concerns about the lack of structure and discipline in the locker room. All of these things point to a company that doesn't have strong leadership, doesn't have clear rules and consequences, and doesn't have the kind of professional environment that you need to run a successful wrestling promotion. The fact that things escalated to the point where Jon Moxley, who is known for being professional and level-headed, felt the need to have a public confrontation shows just how dysfunctional things have become behind the scenes. This isn't about one bad day or one isolated incident. This is about systemic problems that have been building for a long time and have now reached a breaking point. What happens next is anybody's guess, but here are a few scenarios that seem possible. Scenario 1, Tony Khan realizes he made a catastrophic mistake, swallows his pride, and tries to bring Moxley back with an apology and a promise to address the underlying issues. This seems unlikely given Khan's ego, but it would be the smartest business decision. Scenario 2, Moxley signs with WWE and becomes a major player in their ongoing storylines, possibly even main eventing WrestleMania. This would be a huge coup for WWE and a devastating blow to AEW. Scenario 3, Moxley goes back to the independent scene and New Japan, rebuilding his legacy outside of the major American promotions while AEW struggles to fill the void he left behind. Or Scenario 4, something completely unexpected happens that none of us saw coming. Whatever happens, one thing is absolutely certain. The wrestling world is watching, and how Tony Khan handles the aftermath of this decision is going to define his legacy as a promoter. Will he be remembered as the person who gave wrestlers a real alternative to WWE and built something special? Or will he be remembered as the rich kid who squandered incredible opportunities because he couldn't handle criticism and didn't know how to manage people? Right now, it's looking more like the latter, and that's heartbreaking for everyone who believed in what AEW could be. Before we wrap this up, I want to hear from you one final time. What do you think Jon Moxley should do next? Should he go to WWE? Should he focus on independent wrestling and New Japan? Should he take some time off and let things settle down? Drop your opinions in the comments because Wrestling Zone Insider values your perspective and wants to keep this conversation going. This story is far from over. There are going to be more developments, more revelations, and potentially more drama before everything is settled. Make sure you're subscribed to Wrestling Zone Insider so you don't miss any updates as this situation continues to unfold. Hit that like button if you found this video informative, and share it with your wrestling friends so they can stay informed about what's really happening in AEW. The firing of Jon Moxley represents a turning point not just for AEW but for the entire wrestling industry. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power dynamics in wrestling, about the treatment of performers, and about what really matters when building a successful promotion. These are conversations that need to happen, and they need to happen now before more damage is done. Tony Khan had a chance to be a revolutionary figure in professional wrestling, to show that a different approach was possible, that wrestlers could be partners rather than just employees. Instead, he's proving that when push comes to shove, he's no different from any other promoter who lets ego and control issues get in the way of building something truly special. That's the real tragedy here, not just the loss of one great wrestler, but the loss of what AEW could have been if it had lived up to its original promise.